We've stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. Attorney Karen Jimeno, sharp, steady, a lawyer, an educator, turns complex issues into clear insight. Attorney Mike Toledo, seasoned, fearless, a strategist and communicator whose voice has shaped public understanding of law and governance. Together, they make the law accessible, connecting principles with real-life questions, confronting the issues that define our nation. This is Abogado.
Good evening, this is Abogado, where we examine the questions that test both our laws and our conscience. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Tonight, we open with an issue that challenges how we define justice, duty, and integrity. Let's take a closer look.
In any justice system, even the accused deserve a defense. But in high-stakes corruption cases, who steps in to defend them? And why can shape public trust far beyond the courtroom. Time and again, the same names emerge. Prominent lawyers, legal luminaries, former officials turned defenders of the powerful. Supporters say it's their duty to uphold due process, to test evidence, to ensure fairness even for the unpopular. But critics ask, when lawyers defend those accused of plundering public funds, are they upholding justice or enabling impunity? Does choosing a client come with ethical boundaries? Or is it simply the lawyer's job to defend without judgment? It's a clash between legal responsibility and moral accountability. Should prominent lawyers take stronger ethical guidance when choosing to defend officials accused of corruption?
Joining us tonight is someone who brings both the legal and financial lens to the question of accountability. Attorney Nicole Talla is a certified public accountant and certified management accountant.
She is a junior associate at De Leon, Arevalo, Gonzales law offices who earned her degrees in management accounting and law from the University of Santo Tomas. She completed further studies in accountancy at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran. Welcome to Abogado, Attorney Kate, and it's great indeed to have you with us tonight. Now, Attorney Kate, my question to you. Let's start hard at this right away, at this issue. As far as you know, Attorney, do you believe that prominent lawyers should take a stronger ethical guidance in corruption cases? What is your position on this?
Yes, I believe that prominent lawyers should take stronger ethical guidelines in cases of corruption cases, for example. But of course, I want to clarify that not only prominent lawyers, but ordinary lawyers and even young lawyers must abide with the same rules and laws that we have right now. My position is based on the nature of these cases. So corruption cases, this shape the public trust. And yung mga kasong to, very napoprolong lang siya. So my take is that these cases may still drain the nation's treasury, the kaban ng bayan, and the fact na nga na nanakawan na tayo, sana hindi na tayo nanakawan pa ulit.
Okay. Well, Attorney Kate, the right to due process and the right to counsel is a constitutional right.
Yes.
For those who might say, but everyone deserves a lawyer, how do you reconcile that with your position?
Well, totoo naman na lahat tayo, may right tayo to representation, of course. However, these prominent lawyers, top law firms in the country, they are placed in a very unique position for me. They have spent years shaping big cases here in the Philippines, and we know that judicial decisions form part of the legal system. So that type of visibility and that type of influence demand stricter ethical gatekeeping.
Well, you already mentioned earlier that it shouldn't be limited to just the prominent lawyers.
Yes.
All lawyers, for that matter, young and
Yes.
old, should be guided by the same ethical principles. But I guess to continue with what Attorney Karen said, no, how do you actually really balance that? I mean, it's a constitutional guaranteed right for you to have counsel and for you to choose your counsel, and it's also in the code of conduct and responsibility for lawyers in the canons. It also says that you must represent your clients to the best of your ability. So how do you reconcile that?
I think the best way to reconcile that is, of course, lagi tayong sumunod sa rule of law and sundin natin yung moral compass natin, of course. Kailangan natin na gawin lahat ng hindi lang about sa, dapat hindi tayo driven sa mga this type of money that is involved or the fame that you would eventually have after having this type of cases. So the best thing to do here is to uphold the law, and that is our very responsibility as a lawyer.
But when you say that this is our responsibility as lawyers, for those who have money, they can afford prominent lawyers. Are you singling out prominent lawyers, or are you saying it applies to everyone? Kasi kung mag-apply naman to lahat, then are you saying na walang karapatan na kumuha ng abogado yung mga accused if they are involved in corruption cases?
Of course, meron naman po. Siyempre, and for us, yung perception natin ng guilt at this point, of course, is hindi pa, it's somehow subjective. Kasi may mga cases pa naman tayo na may mga evidence tayo na involved dito, of course. And if kaya naman talaga ng accused to have this kind of representation, and this law firms also believe that their clients are innocent and they have may laban sila sa batas, then they can do that as well.
Okay.
Now, this is something siguro that I've been wanting to also find out for myself, but I would like to hear her point of view, no? Because we know that, as I mentioned earlier, the lawyer's oath would require both fidelity to the client and, of course, to the cause of justice. Nasa ating canons yan, nasa ating code of ethical conduct and all that, no? But how do you really now balance it, especially when the accused is was at least initially found, no, to have stolen billions of pesos. In other words, does it have to be the hugeness of the amount? Kasi if you are accused, you can be accused of anything, whether stealing 10 pesos, 200 pesos.
We've had past politicians that
diba?
were accused more of not money, but
Yes.
Crimes against morality or
Exactly.
persons, like,
Yes.
for example, rape, murder.
Yes. Acts of lasciviousness.
So walang kinalaman sa pera per se. Pero,
Oo.
tama ka, may
Diba?
gravity pa rin yung offense.
May
Pero paano mo
gravity.
nga i-measure na
Oo.
yung standard na dapat yung mga prominent law firms should veer away from representing them?
Isn't it's kind of opaque, kind of too subjective? Na pagsasabihin mo, hindi, he is accused of stealing billions, so maybe I shouldn't represent him, because by representing him, every brief I file, it's as if I am complicit.
Or binabayaran
diba?
ka ng taxpayers' money
Binabayaran
of your
ka ng
lawyer's
nanakaw.
fees.
Pero hindi pa naman
Yeah.
napuproven, di ba,
Yeah.
partner? You have to prove beyond reasonable doubt if it's a criminal case. It has not yet been proven that what he actually has is stolen. And yet, there's already this stigma that, no, you can't, because he's being alleged of stealing billions of pesos, like in the flood control projects. So paano mo ngayon ibabalanse?
Well, for me, kasi young lawyer pa po ako, so very new pa ako sa field. Pero, of course, if you think and you believe that your client is have we know that everyone has the right to representation, of course. Pero as lawyers, dapat hindi tayo gagamit ng mga dilatory tactics or kind of delay or mag-rely lang sa mga technical grounds just to save this kind of people. So, if the lawyer believes sa client niya, then we could do that as well.
Represent them,
Yes.
you mean. Okay. So, hindi naman siya depende sa amount. It's more
Yes, of course.
assessing. Pero, di ba, doesn't that put the danger of leaving it up to lawyers to determine the guilt or innocence of someone asking for representation? Because under our code of professional responsibility,
Yes.
you should represent them unless at
Yes,
the
of
time of
course.
representation they're asking you to do something illegal. But like me, I also worked before as someone that did pro bono work for children in conflict with the law, and some
Yes.
of them would tell me like I'm guilty, mga bata to, mga minors
Yes.
that were found guilty of stealing. Usually minor lang yung pera involved is small, but I know they're guilty. Pero I'm not gonna lie on their behalf, but you represent them to the best that you can in terms of making sure they have their day in court, diba?
Yes.
Which I think applies whether maliit na tao to, kasi itong mga minors normally talaga mahihirap na
Yes.
sila that I've represented before. But when you translate that to wealthier people, and in this case, when we're talking about the flood control scandal, people have a lot of resources that are allegedly ill-gotten. But it's the same principle. You can't prejudge them, but you
Yes.
shouldn't also cover up for
Cover,
them.
yes,
Oo.
yes.
So when you're saying na it really depends, like, whether your assessment is guilt or innocence of the kind you're representing, it seems to go overboard, right? Of
Yes.
what we're being asked to do as lawyers.
Yes. Well, I believe naman that our fidelity is both to the client and to the cause of justice, and both of them are not mutually exclusive. So everyone has the right to representation, and although these prominent lawyers, kasi we look up to them, as young lawyers look up to them, and we know that the proceedings for this kind of matter, especially when you have the resources, it can be prolonged there. So, in that case, well, kaya sabi ng mga attorney, Karen, hindi natin sila pwedeng i-prejudge. Kasi lawyers naman tayo, we defend their causes, and we are not the courts, we are not the ones who will say that this is guilty or not. So, if that's the case, then we can represent them, but of course we have to veer away if we know that there are, bad things that are involved already.
But Attorney Kate, what do you think of the argument that? What do you think of this argument that? I will defend my client to the best of my ability. The accused, for example, or the respondent, whether it's a civil or a criminal case, and I'll do the best that I can. Now, even if assuming for the sake of argument that he was guilty, but it is the burden of proof of proof
It's in the
to prove
prosecution.
beyond reasonable doubt
Yeah.
is from the prosecution. So it is not for me in the defense to provide information to the
Yes.
prosecution. The prosecution on its own may stand on the strength of its own case based on the facts and the documents and the testimonies. So in other words, if your case, let's say, for the sake of argument, if this particular case involved a certain public official, and it seems from, for example, in the Senate hearings, in the Blue Ribbon Committee, and even in, for example, let's just hypothetically, the ICI already found a wealth of evidence, even in the House hearings, for example, and the Ombudsman, perhaps, motu proprio, also conducted their own investigation. And there's really a mountain of evidence going against that public official. And you are the lawyer of that public official. And yet, you were able to make it appear it was not proven beyond reasonable doubt. His guilt was not proven beyond reasonable doubt. So, is it then your fault that you defended that public official well? Or is it the fault of the prosecution because they did not study their case well enough? Perhaps they had the evidence, it was strong enough, but you were just, I guess, doing a better way of convincing the judge that your client was innocent. What is your position on that? Is that argument tenable to you? Is that acceptable?
Well, if titignan po talaga natin yon sa mata ng batas, very tenable naman yon. Kasi nga, kailangan yung mga positions natin against, kasi kailangan yung position natin is to defend our client in a way na, based on evidence, of course, right? So, well, as I've said, if you're a prominent lawyer and you belong to a prominent law firm, then you have all the resources. For one, I grew up in a very small town in Cagayan, and where unti lang talaga yung mga lawyers. So those kind of people, wala silang right to representation. Hindi nila may mga bagay sila na parang hindi na lang na tinutuloy dahil they do not have that kind of amazing representations. And as a normal citizen, pag nakikita ko yun, pag nakikita ko yung mga cases na itong mga accused people are being represented by the best lawyers in the country, it saddens me. Because these ordinary citizens in the province do not have this kind of representation, but these people who are accused of stealing monies, billions of monies, they have that kind of privilege.
Okay, but then the government has all the resources also behind their back. So like if you have the accused who needs private representation, then they're using their own resources. Okay, so I guess meron reservations kung ill-gotten wealth ba or hindi. Pero yung gobyerno, if they're already prosecuting through the ombudsman, through the DOJ, then they have the power of the whole government force behind them, including the resources of the government. So wouldn't that create like an equal playing field? So when we're saying that, but yes, you're right, we've seen in the past that those who have very prominent and excellent representation tend to have better outcomes in the results of their cases. But is that really blaming the representation? Or is there something inherently wrong with our justice system?
Well, actually, in cases like this, kailangan talaga natin tutukan yung root causes. Because we are just lawyers. We just represent these clients.
To Attorney Mike's point, if you're doing the best of your job because that's what's required of you by the Code of Professional Responsibility, bakit kasi sisihin, di ba? Parang sabi niya nga, when we're talking about criminal cases, by law, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. So kung hindi nila na-prove yan, di ba't parang kasalanan din ng prosecution? And when you're talking about the government prosecuting a case, and in this case, yung flood corruption scandal, everyone's like really watching, ano bang mangyayari dito? Magkaka-accountability ba? Pagka kinulang, siguro parang ang tatanungin rin natin, bakit nagkulang pa yung gobyerno when they have, when they can use all of the government agencies to gather the evidence?
Yes, the problem with that is, as I've said a while ago, this kind of cases, tumatagal talaga to. And dahil sa tumatagal siya, hindi lang kaban ng bayan yung ginagamit sa pagpo-prosecute, diba? And sa mga katulad ng mga hearings natin, and of course, yung mga pinapasahod natin sa mga taong sa mga nagpo-prosecute ng ganitong cases galing sa kaban ng bayan. So, if that's the case, sana hindi na tayo nakawan pa ulit.
And by saying na nakawan pa ulit, are you saying na the lawyers of the accused should be aware na yung pinangbabayad sa kanilang lawyers' fees ay galing sa kaban ng bayan?
Ay, hindi naman po.
Okay.
Of course, hindi naman po ganun yung scenario natin.
But here's my question.
Hindi,
Pag
I'm so
malaman
sorry
niya
for
later
that.
on na galing, let's say, someone who's been accused, and I'll take a hypothetical example dito sa flood control scandal. Someone who's been accused, whether it's DPWH or someone from Congress or Senate, mapatunayan nga na nakaw talaga yung pera, like what they're being accused of, the kickbacks from infrastructure, flood control, ay guilty talaga sila. Yung lawyer ba, would they have the responsibility to return the money that was paid to them as lawyers' fees, considering ill-gotten wealth din yon?
Dapat.
Theoretically?
Yeah. Hindi pa. I'm sorry if medyo confusing yung
Yeah.
part na yun.
So
Sorry.
you're for retaining the legal fees.
Lawyer kasi. I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Yeah.
Importante yun. Hindi tinuro sa law school yun eh. But I found out, partner, when we were practicing law, dapat para tinuruan tayo how to collect.
Tama ka. Oo nga. Wala yan sa ano natin.
Hindi naman po.
Because it's supposed to be a profession.
Yeah.
Please, Attorney Kate. Yeah.
Sorry, hindi naman po. Siyempre yung, hindi naman tayo yung nagnakaw ng money. Even as lawyers, hindi naman tayo yung kumuha, yung nagnakaw ng money. Or wala naman sa atin yung money in that case. And we just did our part. And our part is to represent our client. So, dun po sa tanong nyo, siyempre, hindi mo kailangang ibalik yung binayad sa'yo nung accused.
Ako yung abogado, hindi ko talaga ibabalik.
Well, it is in exchange for work
Yeah.
that you've rendered honestly,
Yes,
'di ba? Parang
oo.
you are exercising a profession and
Yes.
nag-deliver ka ng service mo. I guess kaya nga yung question is, should you have declined it from the start? And a
Oo.
lot of people, yun yung laging sinasabi, 'di ba? Pag sa mga abogado,
Yun.
kung guilty yung kliyente mo,
Yes.
ba't mo tinanggap?
Correct.
Pero can you imagine a client appearing in
Yes.
court, an accused appearing in court without legal representation? They would also have the ability to say they were deprived of due process if
Correct.
they didn't have a right to counsel, no?
Correct. Kasi who are we to make that determination
Yes.
immediately? These are all still up to now allegations, di ba? Hindi pa kung criminal case, it has to be proven beyond reasonable doubt, di ba? That moral certainty, hindi pa nga nagkakaroon ng kaso, i-judge mo na siya na, sandali lang, medyo may reputation to. No? But it's your right, no? As a lawyer, I guess it's still your right. But at the end of the day, I am of the view, and I think here, we share our views here in the program, that everybody is entitled to representation. Now, no matter how guilty the person may seem, he or she is still entitled to representation as guaranteed under the Constitution, as guaranteed under the Code of Professional Conduct and all the canons. I studied the legal ethics. We all studied legal ethics, remember?
Bar
All the
exam
question.
subject siya.
Subject, di ba? So, pero, di ba, I think dapat tanggapin mo pa rin and siguro, you defend him to the best of your ability. Then I go back nga, no? If for some reason you were able to spring him out and he was not found guilty, then it is not your fault. It is the fault of the prosecution. In the same way na, di ba, for the longest time we had a presidential PCGG, no? Good government, di ba? But nakikita natin na marami sa mga kasong yan ay na-dismiss, not because there were good lawyers on the other side, but there were, from what I've gathered from the decisions that I've read by the Sandigan Bayan, it was simply because there was a violation of the right to an accused to a speedy trial.
Which is what
Di ba?
happened with Gigi Reyes, right? The
Yes, yes.
PDAF scandal. The chief of
Yes.
staff of former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile was imprisoned, and then it took about, 10 years?
Almost
Tapos
10 years,
hindi
yes.
pa rin nag-uusad yung kaso. So,
Yes.
she was able to invoke her right to speedy trial, kaya siya na-release eventually. But I guess the question here also that's relevant when you're talking about prominent lawyers and prominent law firms, how much do you think a lawyer's prestige affects the outcome or pace of corruption trials?
Well, of course.
Good question.
Yes. First of all, dapat hindi talaga ma-affect ng trial, yung case, yung prestige ng type of lawyer, ng prestige ng mga lawyers, diba? So, sorry, what was again the
Well, I
last
guess
part?
the question is, how much do you think the prestige of the lawyers affects the outcome of the case or the speed of a case being resolved?
Well, okay, I need to start again my answer. So, first of all, lawyers' prestige should never affect the outcome or pace of the trial. Pero let's face it, I may be new to the practice and I see what non-lawyers see, no? Na some people who are, accused of this kind of controversies, this illegal doings, they pay a fraction of their lawyers' fees. They pay a fraction of the money that they've stolen from the country and use it as a lawyer's fee. And in these cases, tumatagal talaga yung kaso, tumatagal yung proceedings until sa dumating na lang sa point na minsan na deviate na yung attention ng mga tao doon and the fact na parang gumagalaw na lang tayo sa rule na live your life until you're convicted.
Now, if top lawyers would refuse accepting these cases, won't that weaken the accused's right to a competent legal defense?
Hindi naman po. Lalo na ngayon, I believe that na-leveled na yung playing field natin sa law. Right now, kahit yung mga ordinary law firms or yung mga, even new lawyers, they're very competent to represent these people. In our firm as well, madami kaming young lawyers and I believe that they're very good at what they do. And this doesn't weaken the accused right to competent legal defense.
Well, we've seen in other countries, including the United States, right, like where the really good lawyers make a difference in the outcome. Like, for example, the very famous O.J. Simpson, diba? I mean, he really did have a superstar defense team.
From including
one of them is a Harvard Law professor.
DNA.
If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Diba?
Yes.
Very brilliant representation.
So, and they play the race card too.
Part
of the strategy.
Well, yes. Iba yun eh. Kasi pag US, diba? Meron ka pang race as a factor as well. And then the jury system. So, pero sa Pilipinas, would you say na may basis ba yung sinasabi ng mga tao na yung mga mayayaman lang ang nakakakuha ng hustisya? Kasi nga, they are able to afford very good lawyers.
Sadly, that kind of perception is understandable naman. Sinabi ko kanina na I grew up in a province, a very small province, na unti lang talaga yung mga lawyers doon. And even when I was in law school, a lot of people have been asking me if, kahit law student pa lang ako, tinatanong nila ako if ano yung pwede nilang gawin sa case na to. And it's just sad to see kasi they cannot have the right representation just because they don't have the capacity or the financial ability to, bayaran yung lawyer fees or even minsan mag-file ng cases eh. So, minsan naniniwala ko na ang justice ay para sa mga mayaman lang.
Pero don't you think also, Attorney Kate, that if we come up with stricter ethical rules bago tanggapin ang isang kaso ng isang abogado, wouldn't this actually result in, it could, one, risk abuse, it could also encourage discrimination, and at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, a violation of one's rights, as guaranteed by the rule of law. If we require this stringent ethical rules before one actually accepts a case.
Tsaka partner, just to add to that, one of my reservations is how do you even determine kung prominent ka, anong standard gagamitin mo, anong standard gagamitin din ng Supreme Court.
Siguro,
kasi pag nag-file ka ng
siguro tayo, prominent naman siguro tayo, no?
Malay mo hindi, diba? Kaya nga, so ano ba standard? Diba? Is it because of the fees that you charge?
Subjective and
Gano'n
vague.
ka nakatagal sa practice, diba? Paano mo rin i-measure yung popularity, right?
Correct, yeah.
So parang ang hirap din sabihin, sino ba ang prominent, diba?
Yes.
Well, actually for me, very subjective nga din yun. Pero right now, we have social media. And lahat ng tao, the good thing about social media is a lot of people have been involved in this kind of cases na before parang hindi nila pinapansin yon, hindi ganun kadalas manood yung mga tao ng mga Senate hearing and cases like that. But right now, even young people watch it and very invested about it. So yung prominent, very subjective, maybe some people would say that prominent lawyers are these people who have been practicing law and you've seen in televisions for a very long time already.
Yung tinatawag nilang abogado de campanilla. Diba? That's the term they used before. I don't know if they use it nowadays with the young people, but that's what they used to say. Because I remember, partner, if I may just slightly digress a bit, without mentioning na lang the parties involved, when I was a very young lawyer then, which was not too far ago, I represented a very popular cabinet member, and I was asked by a sitting senator, we belong to the same law firm, of course he had to go on leave, to represent him. And when I was in one of the hearings, because I did not talk as much because I felt that the strategy was to listen, I was approached by the wife of the respondent at that time, and he was saying, "You didn't say anything." So.
Are we paying you per
Yes,
hour?
yeah, although it was pro bono.
Yeah, okay, pro bono pala.
Except for the expenses for the photocopying. But the thing is, the next day, I was attacked. I was attacked in media by some columnists saying that the other co-accused was represented by an abogado de Campanilla, whereas a very important member of the cabinet of the president at the time was just represented by this young lawyer that was wet in the ears.
Ikaw yun,
Ako
yun.
yun. Young lawyers. But I explained the strategy. Ang sinabi ko, pag nasa Senate hearing ka, makinig ka lang. You have to listen. There's no point arguing, especially if the point of argument was something that should not even be argued upon. Because at the end of the day, they will just gang out on you. This is not the forum for that. But they just felt that the fact that there was no rebuttal, no? Kaya nga, inaano ko na siguro yun, no? Because you mentioned about prominence and all that, may effect talaga.
Tsaka, I guess, like, you can game the system. Like,
Oh, yes.
look at you. Like, the fact that they sent you, kung alam nilang magmamatter if it's someone na more experienced, like a type like Justice Cuevas, nung kasama namin ng defense team.
Sa amin din naman yun. Sa
So,
impeachment.
exactly. So, you can game the system na pag alam mo na, hindi, wag experience padala mo kasi it's more effective na bagong lawyer lang, bata lang. So, I guess like it works both ways, right?
I guess. It can actually work both ways. Kaya even the question is of the prominent lawyers, no? But it was raised by a friend of ours. And actually, that's one of the reasons why it's being discussed right now. Because I guess they have been seeing that marami mga malalaking kaso na nakikita natin involving public officials, or not even public officials. And then, usually, it's the prominent lawyers representing them. And there's a presumption na pag ang lawyers representing is prominent, that pwede nilang to get the accused off the hook. That is the presumption, which I think it's questionable. It's a rebuttable presumption, no doubt. Because, as I said, there is a system that we work with. Prominence per se does not necessarily mean that you win the case. But of course, it may add a little prestige. What they're saying kasi na ang ina-argue ng iba, if correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Kate, no, ang ina-argue ng iba, pag ikaw ay sikat na abogado at kilalang-kilala, abogado de Campanilla, as they mentioned in the past, no, prominent, and then you represent somebody who has been accused, for example, stealing billions in the flood control projects, you're actually allegedly, and I might say allegedly because I don't totally agree, laundering your reputation. Yeah, para bang ginagamit mo yung reputation mo, kung si attorney so-and-so, na isang prominent na lawyer, is willing to represent this man who is being accused of stealing, hindi naman siguro talagang masama itong public official na ito. Kasi hindi sa paaming pananaw, hindi naman gagawin ni attorney prominent na ang kanyang pangalan ay baka ma-identify sa isang taong may questionably na accused of, let's say, stealing billions, di ba? So, what is your comment on that, Attorney Kate?
Well, I know na it sways the public opinion talaga. It depends sa lawyer nung tao. Minsan, yun nga po, napapaisip tayo na, baka nga hindi to guilty. Kasi hindi naman to i-represent na ganitong kind of person, na ganitong very formidable lawyer. Pero, well, right now, masyado tayong nasa social media. Ang dami nating naririnig sa a lot of people. And madami tayong mga opinions from the public that we don't even know if it's tenable or if it's, well, sabi-sabi lang talaga. Pero in that case, I believe that yung kind of impact nito sa tao, very different, very scary at some points.
Scary because you have those that you feel are guilty being represented by someone that might be able to get them out as innocent? Like ma-acquit sila kahit na may kasalanan talaga sila? Is that the scary part?
I think hindi scary but malungkot. Kasi these kind of lawyers is very prominent lawyers represent this kind of people and yung mga ibang tao walang access sa ganito.
Well, is it possible that emphasizing moral restraint could also unintentionally politicize the legal profession? Because you're leaving it up to the lawyers to determine whether someone is guilty or not, even before they go to trial. You're withholding them of representation.
Well, in that case, it's not politicizing the legal professions kasi meron pa rin tayong mga sinusunod na mga rules and ng mga laws and we don't actually stop representing some people just because we think that the majority of the people think that these accused are guilty nga po, ano.
Okay. Well, I think, partner, very interesting talaga itong discussion na to at very timely kasi parating pa lang yung mga kaso, wala pang sinafile yung ombudsman. But for now, we'll have to pause for a short break. When we return, we'll ask Attorney Kate how lawyers can protect both their clients' rights and the nation's trust. This is Abogado.
Welcome back to Abogado, and we are still with Attorney Nicole Talla of the Leon, Arevalo, Gonzales law offices. Before the break, we explored whether a lawyer's choice of client can and should be guided by ethics beyond the courtroom.
Now, Attorney Kate, let's end with two critical reflections. Number one, with the whole flood control scandal, padating pa lang yung mga kaso na ifa-file sa ombudsman. What do you think should be the direction of lawyers? Should they prioritize yung ethical standards na, to be fair, wala naman talaga dun sa legal ethics natin per se in terms of how to choose clients? Or whether they should just represent clients as they come, regardless of whether merong strong evidence of guilt na lumabas dun sa mga Blue Ribbon Committee hearings or ICI?
Well, I think na sa mga ganitong cases, they just have to abide by the law and by the rule. Of course, if nakikita naman talaga nila, they have to work with the evidence that they have. They have to focus on the fact of, upholding the law and in the administration of justice. So, of course, paparating pa lang nga yung mga kaso sa mga flood control scandal na ito. The only thing that I can say is do not compromise your duty as a lawyer to the court and to the people just because you have to advocate for your client na, going to the gray area na or using dilatory tactics or using this other, technical grounds that are not very much, going through the substantive part of the cases. But of course, hindi ko sinasabi na if mas substantive yung mas sa substantive part is mas guilty yung accused, then kailangan na nating set aside or wag pansin yung technical grounds because as lawyers we have to look at both the procedural and the substantive sides of the law.
Yeah, but anyway, nasa rules naman yan, di ba?
Yes.
Bawal gamitin ang technical rules to delay or cause delay. Pwede kang mag-disbar because of that, right?
Kaya there are tinatawag natin duties of integrity, di ba, na dapat natin sundan. Conflict of interest, dapat, di ba, importante din yun. No? These are the things that are in our code, in the code of responsibility
And kudos
of
to the
lawyers.
Supreme Court. They've actually been refining the rules of court, rules of procedure to prohibit yung mga dilatory pleadings, what they
Yes.
call mga pleadings that tend to just delay the proceedings.
To delay
Oo.
the case, yeah.
Yeah.
They came up with the latest one, in, if I'm not mistaken, partner in 2023, no?
Yeah.
This new revised code. Kasi alam mo naman dati, when I was practicing law, just a couple of years back, again, you know, isa sa mga strategy talaga yun eh. Aminin natin, di ba? Mga dilatory tactics. In fact, if I may just share a personal experience, partner, one of the first things that I did when I was a young lawyer, I was asked to go to court. And siyempre, kinabahan ako. Kasi this is my first time to go to court, di ba? Sabi ko, paano niyan? Ito na, korte na. And you know what? All I had to do was to ask for a motion to postpone.
I'm sure bihis na bihis ka pa rin. Ganyan ka na magbihis dati pa.
Kasi yung pala ang style talaga sa litigation, habang binibreak in ka, so to speak, labas ka muna, punta ka sa korte. But yung mga simple motion lang. So I went to court. I went to court and I memorized pa my line. Because I have to memorize para to impress the judge. So sabi ko, so the case of so and so, sabi ko, Your Honor, respectfully appealing to the respondent, Your Honor, due to the fact that there are certain documents not in our possession, can we postpone today's hearing and move it to a date and time
Memorize
convenient
mo pa, ha?
to this
You can never
honorable
forget
court?
your first
Oo.
court appearance
Tapos
talaga.
ano sinabi ng judge? Convenient to this honorable court's date and time. Yes, Your Honor. Well, son, tomorrow is convenient for the court. No, not tomorrow, Judge. So talagang, meron talaga, ngayon wala na yan, mahirap na mag-dilatory tactics. I think you have a limit now. I haven't been practicing litigating for a while now, but correct me if I'm wrong, partner, di ba ngayon, ilang motions lang pwede mong gawin.
Tsaka in some types of proceedings, bawal yung mga certain, bawal mag-MR, mga gano'n. So talagang they've tried to cut yung mga ginagamit na delay.
Which is really good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Justice delayed, they say, is justice denied, di ba?
Yeah. And finally, last critical point, what would be the message you want to give to young lawyers who want both success and integrity, especially when the client's money and reputation come with moral gray areas?
Well, first of all, as a young lawyer, masyado pa akong bago sa field na to, masyado pang takot, well, masyado pang very inexperienced pa. Pero, I think I just passed the bar this year. So, yung experience ko...
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yung experience ko, na-realize ko na this profession is really a privilege. This is something that not everyone can do. And I'm very proud na isa ako sa mga very few people who can practice it. And what I can say to the young people then is to always think that this is not a money-making business. Lawyering is not a money-making business, and that we have to pause every time that we do things that napapaisip tayo na parang nasa gray area na ako, something like that, na isipin natin if is this the kind of career that I want to build. And yung mga paghihirap sa law school, hindi yun madali. And eventually, nakatakot din this bar, of course. So, ayun po.
Well, I guess, partner, in the end, just remembering your anecdote about your first appearance in court. Ako rin naalala ko na kinakabahan pa. Pinapadala pa ako sa mga probinsya dati. But, alam mo, may point din pala talaga na when you have a young lawyer as against a very experienced lawyer, it's not an even playing field in that sense. Kasi, lalo na pag live ka na sa court, even the way you object, hindi agad papasok sa isip mo pagka ongoing na yung trial, tapos direct examination, cross-examination, you might not even have the skill level to raise the proper objection at the proper time.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Well, Attorney Kate Nicole Talla, thank you for joining us tonight and shedding light on a complex question, one that goes to the heart of integrity in our justice system.
Tonight's conversation reminds us that while every person deserves a defense, not every defense preserves justice.
As the legal profession continues to evolve, may we remember that fairness and conscience must walk side by side. This is Abogado. Good night.